If there's one thing in common between humanity and receiving your order off AliExpress, it's failure. Whether it be your New Year's resolution or actually coming back with the milk, humans have been known to fail time and time again. But today, I have the craziest projects that you either wish they worked or you are very glad they failed. So without further ado, let's get into it. Have you ever heard of mini kamikaze pilots? Well, the US Army really used the Uno reverse card on Japan with this one. During World War II, the US military had an idea called Project X-ray. They wanted to use bats to carry small bombs that could start fires. The plan was to put timed bombs on the bats and let them fly over Japanese cities. The bats would go into buildings and the bombs would explode, causing fires and confusion. The project wanted to use the fact that many buildings in Japanese cities were made of wood and could catch fire easily. Even though the idea was clever, it was hard to make it work. They had trouble getting the bats to go where they wanted and stay there. It took a lot of time and effort to train the bats and make the fire bombs. In the end, Project X-ray was not as important because the Manhattan Project, which created atomic bombs, was more successful. So the project with the bats was not seen as crucial and was stopped. Even though using animals for unusual warfare has been looked into, Project X-ray is one of the stranger and more memorable examples. Have you ever wondered when they will invent the jetpack and thought how OP it would be in a war? Well, that's what the US Army thought as well. Project Stork, officially known as the Individual Lifting Vehicle, was an attempt by the US military to create a personal flying platform for soldiers, sort of like a jetpack, but you stand on it. The platform was like a small helicopter with rotors mounted on a backpack-like frame. The project was aimed to help soldiers move faster through difficult terrains and urban environments. However, the small size of the platform meant they couldn't fit much fuel capacity. This meant they could only fly for a short time. Also, the noise made by the rotors would make stealthy operations nearly impossible. Safety was a big concern, as the platforms weren't exactly as stable as they thought. The project ended up being scrapped due to the combination of the technical problems and safety risks. You know how your older siblings used to play scary music to try and scare you at night? Well, the US Army had the exact idea against Vietnam. They wanted to use what the Vietnamese people believed about spirits and life after death to scare the enemy soldiers. They used strange and scary sounds and recordings of Vietnamese voices to make it seem like the ghosts of dead soldiers were haunting them and in the jungle. This was meant to make the enemy soldiers feel scared and worried. I mean, who wouldn't be scared if you heard some Annabelle music while walking through the jungle at midnight? The idea was that these sounds would lower enemy morale, create psychological stress, and therefore make them worse at fighting. Operation Wandering Soul ended up not really working. I mean, some soldiers were feeling uneasy hearing the sounds. Others found ways to ignore the recordings. Also, the dense jungle distorted the sounds, so they didn't have a big effect. In the modern era, many strides have been made toward improving the lives and rights of the LGBT community, resulting in more acceptance of homosexuality in today's culture than ever before. As with all things, this left us with one pressing question: can we weaponize it? The gay bomb concept is a questionable idea that got a lot of attention in the early 2000s. Someone suggested to make a non-lethal chemical weapon that could change enemy soldiers, making them attracted to each other. The plan was to make soldiers think a lot about each other in a suspicious way so that they wouldn't work well together in the military and be less effective in combat. But the way people feel attracted to others is really complicated and can't be controlled easily with chemicals. Also, there were big problems with ethics and human rights if they tried to use such a thing as a weapon. The idea of the gay bomb wasn't taken seriously, and a lot of people criticized it because it was based on fake science and had a lot of ethical problems. Back in the Cold War time, the CIA thought of unusual ways to do spying. One of these strange ideas was Project Acoustic Kitty. They wanted to make cats into secret spies by putting advanced listening devices inside them through surgery. They planned to put a microphone in the cat's ear, a tiny radio broadcaster in its head, and a thin wire antenna inside its body. The thought was that since cats are seen in cities all the time, they could go into important places without anyone noticing and listen to what people were saying. But the project had a lot of problems. Cats are known for doing their own thing and are hard to teach. Also, the technology back then wasn't good enough to make small spy gear that worked well. Plus, the stuff they put inside the cats made them sick, causing infections and trouble moving around. In 1967, the CIA tried out the idea by letting a trained cat near a Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. But then the cat got hit by a taxi and died right after being released. Because of this, along with the problems with the technology and worries about what they were doing, they stopped the project. But that is it for today. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.